Okay, good. Let's get into this. Come here real quick. I want to show you something about Social Security benefits, but specifically when it comes to Elon Musk's. Now, you all know Elon Musk is kind of stepping away from the government life. And to be fair with you, if we can learn anything from rich people going into government, is that it is a bad idea for them. Because no matter what happens at the end of the day, you basically end up in a situation where their credibility gets squashed. The amount of money they make gets significantly reduced. They end up losing money in most instances, unless you're one of those like long-standing traditional politicians, like, Pelosi or, one of those types. They seem to make lots of money being in politics, which, should always raise a couple hairs on the back of your neck. Now, with that said, when it comes to Elon Musk, and specifically what this video is about, there were three main things that he promoted as red flags of the Social Security Administration. There were a lot more than that, but there were three main things that basically he really focused on. The first one was that there were people that were still very, very, very old on basically the system that were doing funny financial things. And you can split those two funny financial things into two categories. Category one, receiving benefits that they were not supposed to, like checks that were monthly. And number two, being able to be used as kind of like a stand-in for IRS tax purposes, so that basically for taxation, somebody else would not have to take the hit, and that old person where their Social Security number was still active would take the hit. There were quite a few individuals over a certain age who were essentially making a lot of money that were not still alive. And then the next thing basically is he got a lot of trouble with the Democrats over labeling Social Security basically a Ponzi scheme. Now, to be really fair about this, I did a video explaining why Social Security is not a Ponzi scheme, but it is actually worse than a Ponzi scheme. And I got a lot of trouble for that. In fact, there was a politician who reached out to me that shook their finger at me through the phone about, how dare I, and whatever. You know what I mean? Look, it is what it is. In a Ponzi scheme, an investor makes a choice to invest money, doesn't realize it's a fraud, gets screwed over. In Social Security, the person who's the investor has no choice, must invest, and now, of course, it's running out, which makes the program look fraudulent to begin with. So, de facto, Social Security, it's worse than a Ponzi scheme because you don't have the choice. You are born into that version. I mean, you could call it a slavery thing. You could call it whatever you want, but you are born into that where you have to pay FICA taxes. Ponzi schemes, you don't have to invest into the fraud. You made the choice, okay? And then, of course, basically the advocacy of the crackdown of the entitlement benefits and things like that, because, the feeling was that too many people were getting too many benefits from the Social Security Administration. Now, none of these things are on their face shocking before Elon even stepped into the arena. If you walked up to somebody on the street in New York or California or Florida or Texas and said, hey, do you think, realistically, that, the Social Security Administration is having a Ponzi scheme problem? Everybody would say yes, absolutely. Okay. If you walked up to somebody on the street and said, hey, do you think people are getting paid benefits that are actually already dead or too old and should already be dead that are receiving benefits? The person would emphatically say, of course. Of course, it's the government. It's federal government, lots of waste, tons of waste. So the bottom line that we run into here is, and I'm about to read you an article. The article is this, okay? And I want you to keep in mind, I'm an independent on this stuff. And what's weird is that people are like, you're surely not an independent because you're defending the Republicans, you're defending the Democrats. Just to help you guys out, an independent is not really somebody who's in the middle. An independent is somebody who likes things from the Democrats and likes things from the Republicans and gives no side their allegiance. That's what an independent really is. We tend to seem like we're in the middle, but at the end of the day, we like some of the stuff over here. We like some of the stuff over here. We do not pledge allegiance to the left. We do not pledge allegiance to the right. Trump is not our king, our master. Biden is not our king, not our master. We simply like things on both sides, and we hate things on both sides. Here's an article. Of course, they're beating up on Elon. I want to make it very clear that I'll try and give you the other side. When I give you the more Republican side, don't automatically think that I'm just super Republican. I see a lot of comments like that, and I get like, and I think, and I'm disclaimer at the beginning. I'm like, hey guys, I'm giving you the other side so you can understand both sides. Like, no, you must be a Republican. You must be a Trumper. And I'm like, ha, did you miss the disclaimer? You missed the disclaimer. You must have missed it. It's okay. It's okay. It's no biggie. M&M21 with the $1.99 donation. Wahoo Walter. Thank you, good sir. I super appreciate it. That's absolutely awesome. I love that name, M&M21. With that said, Princess Diana 62 as well with the $2 donation. Howdy, madam. How you doing? Did 2 reviews on Yelp. I super appreciate those. Those are absolutely amazing, and they help everybody recognize the firm. And everybody, please thank them, M&M, and also Princess Diana. Princess Diana has been with us for a very long time. She is royalty in this chat room, let me tell you, as a part of the group. Also, please remember to like the video if you enjoy these. Not everybody's cup of tea, the first video, but by the 6th video, I'm on your board. Let me tell you, I am in your pocket. I'm in your pocket with happy news and joy. You reach in your pocket, and you're like, I got him right here. You know, now I'm thinking to myself as like this tiny little plastic soldier in your pocket. But anyways, the point is this. We're going to go through this. You're going to understand it. We're going to have a better understanding of Social Security and Elon Musk. Let's get into it. Chris Hayes. Okay, so here's the title. Elon Musk's stint in government has been an abject failure and wildly destructive. The billionaire's tenure in Washington can only be described as a complete failure, substantively and politically. Now, recognize, whenever you read a title in the news like that, it's not an opinion piece. It is a paid-for bullshit attack. That is not an opinion piece. An opinion piece is, here's what I liked, here's what I didn't like, here's what you should consider, here's where the product did well, here's where the product didn't do well, yada, yada, yada. This is the usual stuff that you see in the news now. This is legacy news. Legacy news is mostly bullshit narrative paid for by rich people to maneuver the American people this way or that way, depending on how they can extract the most money from them. That's the way it works. That's the way it is. Okay. By Chris Hayes. So remember, you know, this is a, you know, he literally is on payroll to make this kind of stuff. This is, all right, so here we go. To put the news in the parlance of SpaceX, it seems Elon Musk's career as a co-president to Donald Trump has had a bit of a rapid, unscheduled disassembly. Technically, his Department of Government Efficiency campaign was always billed as a temporary, but less than 6 months into his administration, the man who came in like some sort of MAGA rock star, who was jumping around at Trump rallies, appeared at cabinet meetings, and spoke to adoring crowds at CPAC, is now slinking out the side door. Okay, so the idea is, this writer of this article is showing basically how Elon Musk is afraid and sad and in the shadows and escaping from the light of being the high up, you know, kind of like not vice president, but whatever his official position under the blankets would be with the Republican Party. Okay, so their main thing here is to establish he was a failure. Elon, understood that he was a failure. He's ashamed of what he did, and he's slinking away. Of course, that's total BS. That's not even built into Elon. Elon doesn't even have that mode in his body. Like if you sat down in the Elon car and you were like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and, do this or do that or whatever. Oh my goodness. M&M 21. My apologies. I said, sir, I should have said, ma'am. I should have said, ma'am. My apologies. My apologies. My apologies on that one. So with that said, with Elon, he doesn't have a shift into second gear that makes him feel like, oh, I screwed up. He doesn't have that. Like if you look at the past where he's had kids with other women and things like that, when they start to give him crap, he just fixes it with money or this thing or that thing and then just keeps hammering. He doesn't have a second shift gear where basically he's like, I'm so sorry, I messed up and he doesn't have, it's not built into him. Okay, it doesn't exist in him. So right off the bat, this whole like he's slinking away, total bullshit. Okay, he doesn't have that in him. Okay, remember, in order for people to become those ultra wealthy, ultra accomplished, ultra achieved, and I remember when they were coming out with those articles about Elon Musk is not intelligent at all. He doesn't have any intelligence. He doesn't have an IQ of anything. Everyone built everything for him. Remember when they came out with those articles, and then like people were just like, oh wow, these political parties, they don't have any honor to them, respect, or even validity at this point. And that's what happens. You know what I mean? Like when we watch the news, like I don't even pay for TV anymore. I pay for like Disney, HBO Max, Like Paramount, I don't even pay for TV anymore. I don't, Fox News, CNN, like I read their articles and I'm just like, this is some bull. This is some high level shittery. But again, that's what they're trying to establish here. So it kind of is what it is. Just understand that. Now, next thing. Okay, so by every conceivable metric, again, we're reading the article here, so it's going to be a little hate show against Trump, right? Against Elon. By every conceivable metric, Musk's stint in government has been an abject failure. On the substance alone, it has been wildly destructive. A lot of lifelong experts in key positions have lost their jobs, which is true. That is something that we're going to go into a little bit. Important medical research has been set back, possibly indefinitely, which is true, although we weren't really getting efficient results. No offense for the medical industry, but how many of you have seen cures coming out of all these medical labs that we've been paying for as tax-paying individuals that the government then pays these labs to work on things for? How many cures to cancer have you noticed over the past, 20 years? Not many. Okay. Important medical research has been set back, possibly indefinitely. Government agencies are functioning worse than they were before. Some of them are, but to be fair, some of them, some of them we needed to really, shake and bake them down to a smaller something, because there was no reason why they were that mega. All right. With that said, it's clear Musk did real substantive damage that will be hard to repair. You notice that they didn't go to specific facts right up front. They always start these articles with massive, categorical, emergency, volcano-ending news. And it's like, guys, just give me the details of the facts. All right, let's keep reading. There are also huge, we will have those, by the way, because we do those on the shows. We have the actual OIG hot sheets. So there are also huge ramifications for Global South, where cuts to foreign aid will lead to needless suffering. Musk's fellow billionaire Bill Gates warned that cuts to the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, the agency Musk bragged about putting through the wood chipper, could cost millions of lives throughout the world. Experts have also cautioned that tens of thousands of people could die as a result of cuts to the AIDS relief program, PEPFAR. Okay, so I'm curious to see where you guys stand. Let me know, do you feel that the do you feel that the United States federal government should have been paying billions and then over time trillions towards all of these U.S. aid functions for other countries to basically help the homeless, help the incurable in other countries? Do you feel that we, as a $36 trillion nation, and I'm not saying that in a pro or a negative way, do you feel that we, as somebody in debt, as a country, can afford to pay for the world's homeless and the world's impoverished and the world's, incurable? What do you guys think? I mean, to me, you got to take care of, Americans first. Americans first, number one. You know what I mean? Like, Social Security is failing in 2033 because we didn't take care of Americans first. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know about you, but when people paid their entire life into a program and then the government comes back and says, shit, we didn't get the math right. Sorry, you know what I mean? It's just, we didn't have it. We didn't get it. You know what I mean? Math is tough. Math is hard, right? And then they're like shelling out billions to other countries to feed their poor and homeless. I'm sitting back and I'm just like, I don't know. And I feel like our homeless veterans, you know what I mean? I don't know, and then when they had immigrants coming in and kicking the veterans out of their hotel rooms in New York, I was just like, damn, that is some hearty, beefy steak, unethical level stuff. That blew me away. That didn't matter. It wasn't a money question. It was that our veterans were not good enough to keep their housing. You ever stop and think about that when they had to kick the veterans out to allow immigrants in who were here illegally and then made legally, and and then they were changing rules and then they were going to put them on SSI. Did you ever sit back and think a veteran that is in a hotel spending their VA compensation disability money to be able to stay there wasn't good enough for the federal government to keep them in their house situation? That's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. That just blows my mind. You know what I mean? Like, that's the ultimate FU to the people who pick up arms to defend our butts so that we have the life that we can. You know, it's mind blowing. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Princess Diana with the $1.49 donation. I super appreciate it with the cool little coin star. And also, again, with the $2 donation. I sent you $1. Thank you. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Diana is royalty with this, with this channel. She's been with us a very, very long. In fact, I think the only person that I know of that's been with us longer is Leanne. But basically, Diana is a hardcore member, a subscriber, and she's probably going to be one of the first people to reach the ultimate end of the membership of just time spent as a member. When YouTube was like, "Hey, we're going to give you memberships. What do you want to do?" And I was like, okay, let me set this up. Diana's probably going to be the first one to get that really cool logo, which is like at the end of the thing. So very, very cool. Now, with that said, all right, the world's richest man promised to cut federal spending by $2 trillion, but by his own website, Shoddy Math, he managed to cut just $175 billion. He barely made a dent. Even the libertarian Cato Institute, which is ideologically very supportive of Dodge's mission, wrote that Musk has overpromised and underdelivered on verifiable spending cuts. Yeah, I would say they went in too hard, too fast, said too big of numbers, yes. But y'all weren't paying for him to find $2 trillion. Y'all were paying for him to audit the federal government so that it could pass its first accounting review. We never had the federal government in our lifetime, and I don't care how old you are on this, I can say that. We have a 100-year-old on here. We've never had a full federal government audit to make this thing work. We've never had it. And now, what's interesting is that people are saying he never hit his $2 trillion mark of cut. And that's turn on your lawyer brain for a moment. Turn on your lawyer brain, okay? The world's richest man promised to cut federal spending by $2 trillion, but by his own website, Shoddy Math, he managed to cut just $175 billion. So this is an extreme, I don't think this is liberal. Like, this is extreme left writing, right? So, because, I consider myself pretty liberal because, I'm kind of in the middle on a lot of stuff. But, bottom line is I love Social Security. I think it's amazing. And then, at the same time, I understand where the Republicans are coming from. But, we got to find a balance, But the extreme left person is arguing, hey, you were supposed to hit your $2 trillion mark, but you only hit $175 billion. So the extreme left article writer is arguing that he should have done more to hit the $2 trillion mark. Well, in order to do that, they'd have to cut more staff. They'd have to cut more funding. They'd have to cut more this. They'd have to end entire agencies and programs beyond what they already did. So, hey, super left writer here. What is this? Chris Hayes, I think it was. Yeah, it was Chris Hayes. Hey, Chris Hayes, are you going to argue that he has to hit his $2 trillion? Or are you just going to argue that, hey, $175 billion is good enough? Because if you're arguing he's got to hit his $2 trillion, then you're the one saying they need to shut down many, many, many more agencies of the federal government. It's a little bit of some BS on behalf of this writer on this. So, is he really, and that's the thing I hate about these legacy groups. They know how to manipulate the mind. He'll be like, well, he was supposed to hit $2 trillion. And then they won't explain, well, if he did hit $2 trillion, he would have massively had to cut even more. Now, look, at the same time, $175 billion is not a shameful amount to save in an audit. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to comprehend a person saying, we audited the federal government, we saved $175 billion. Let's say it's even worse. We saved $150 billion. Let's say it's even worse. We found $100 billion. We found $100 billion that we were able to save. That's incredible. That's incredible. How about this? Every 4 years, like the Olympics, we have a federal government audit. Why not? Doesn't have to be Elon. We can get separate private organizations to audit the government every 4 years. We can call it something cool, like the Math Olympics. It would be great. It would be so we can literally celebrate them. Let's put them on TV. Let's do a whole big thing. When they find something, let's put them on a podium as to who found the most waste. Let's do it. The federal government needs to be audited. In fact, there's reports that there's trillions of dollars that go out from the bank accounts each year to specialty programs that are not open to the general public that we can't fully trace what happens to them. But you don't hear Elon talking about those because they must know exactly what those programs are for and what they're doing. So yeah. And they must be okay with it too. Otherwise, that would have been splattered all over the news. All right. So Musk assumed that the government is full of lazy bureaucrats who could be fired without any meaningful consequence. I don't think that that's accurate. I think what he did was he took the ideology of how you take a private company, and if the private company is going to go out of business, just like the federal government is at 36 trillion in debt, then you have to start slashing and laying off and retiring and blah, 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 lots of people. Okay, did Musk assume that the government is full of lazy bureaucrats? Yeah, well, I'm sure he thought some of them were. I'm sure because, even I knew, even before Trump, even before Biden, even before Trump's first thing, when I worked with the government, the knowledge base, was, and remember, I always was outside the government working with them as associate separate with a company as a private individual working with them. I always knew that when somebody was mean to me or did something horrific with the federal government, they weren't going to get fired. If I complained, they weren't going to get fired. I always knew that. Now it's flipped. For the first time, the private industry, which would axe you real quick out the door, now it's the government saying, hey, we got to audit this and treat this more like an actual company that needs to be profitable for the American people. So I guess another thing I'm curious with you guys is, do you feel that an audit is appropriate? Or do you feel that an audit was not appropriate? Did you like the way the government was being run without knowing whether or not it was financially capable of supporting itself in the future? Keep in mind, if you answer that question, you have to answer that question as a tax-paying individual, not a beneficiary recipient. Because if you answer it from the beneficiary recipient, there's this cloud of expectation that the money is always going to be there. It's not. We mathematically know when your check is not going to be the same. It's not going to be able to pay the proper amount. We mathematically know exactly when that's going to happen based off of an annual cycle. If you're a person that's paying taxes, then, that's a person that's going, yes, I'm actively paying FICA taxes. I'm actively paying into the system. I'm actively, an investor right now, hoping yada, yada, yada. You have to look at it from that mentality, because whether or not a lot of the Social Security recipients like it, right? The retired, the disabled, the widows, the different DACs, whatever, they have to realize that they need a very strong working vocational environment for people who are younger to make money. If you don't have a strong economy, Social Security fails. If you don't have enough kids being born in this country that are working after, so many years, when they're 15, 18, 25, whatever, you have to have working future people. Otherwise, Social Security fails. I want that real clear up front. If we don't get our stuff together, right, our accounting, our auditing, Social Security fails. If we don't get basically more kids being born and working, Social Security, it fails. Just realize that up front. Okay, now, next thing. Musk assumed that the government is full of lazy bureaucrats who could be fired without any meaningful consequences, but even one of his Doge insiders had to concede that's not actually true. In an interview, tech entrepreneur Sahil Lavangia, who Musk placed in the Department of Veteran Affairs, told Fast Company earlier this month, I would say the culture shock is mostly a lot of meetings, not a lot of decisions, but honestly, it's kind of fine because the government works. It's not as inefficient as I was expecting, to be honest. I was hoping for more easy wins. That's wonderful news. That's wonderful news. So the idea, now this is the reality that we're facing, okay? The idea that the government is working as the government's supposed to be working, that's great. The main issue is, could it be better? Could it be more efficient? Could it actually complete more tasks quickly? We know that it is not at the level required, essentially of, it's not at the level of the private industries, because the private industries, they either succeed or they die. The federal government got 36 trillion in debt by mostly borrowing against the American people, which is just some wicked, weird crap. I mean, that's insane. I just couldn't believe that myself. Now, Lavangia said he found himself surrounded by people who love their jobs, who came to the government with a sense of mission driving their work. According to Fast Company, after that interview was published, Lavangia said his access was revoked without warning and his Doge days were over. Now that it's clear Americans do not like the behavior and the cruelty of Doge, Musk, with what is left of his tattered reputation, is doing media interviews trying to distance himself from it all. Okay, now let's be fair here. Every one of these political parties has an image to uphold. The image of the Republican Party is that the government is very out of control with its spending, very out of control when it comes to its ability to basically handle its own functions. The Republicans are selling that because if they don't sell that, it's not going to make sense to do an audit. People will not buy onto an audit if they believe the government is efficient in doing what it's supposed to do. Now, this article is presenting the ideology that the government is amazing, it's fine, there's nothing to fix, everything's wonderful. We're going to be going through the specific hot sheets of the illegal immigrants, regular immigrants, citizens, who are all basically frauding the United States government, who were recently corrected, arrested, or put in jail over the past couple of weeks. Cool. So here we go. So basically, they're claiming Elon Musk is trying to distance himself from the government. Quote, "You know, it's not like I agree with everything the administration does," Musk told CBS News. "I mean, I agree with much of what the administration does, but we have differences of opinion. But it's difficult for me to bring that up in an interview because then it creates a point of contention. So then I'm a little stuck in a bind where I'm like, well, I don't want to, speak out against the administration, but I also don't want to take credit for everything the administration is doing." So yeah, I'm sure Elon is doing a little bit of damage control because his companies are not making much money anymore. He's got to get back to the reality of what made him the most wealthy individual on planet Earth. He's got to go back to that reality. Now, I think we can all agree that when billionaires get into the business of government, they tend to do poorly if they are active, creation-based billionaires. You have some individuals who are heavy millionaires, who are light billionaires, who are not creating products. They just get investments to make them money, where they're not actually leading corporations, advising things, modifying things, creating, welding, putting stuff together, shooting a rocket into space. The billionaires and the millionaires that do well in Congress are the ones who just do investments, and the investments make the money. The billionaires that do shitty in Congress are the ones who actually own companies. They're the ones who lose money in this whole game. All right. It is a tough spot to be associated with those toxic Trump policies. And then remember, this is the article again. And they write it so that they have his quote, and then they say something that sounds like it might be his same framing of terminology, diction, and syntax. So, again, remember, give it, try to put yourself in the middle. I know some of you are hard Democrats, hard Republicans, but just join me in the independent area where we like some stuff, and we have to make sense of it all. Okay. And it's a tough spot to be associated with those toxic Trump policies, but it's worth remembering Musk is the same guy who was on stage with a chainsaw bragging about all the cuts he was making to the federal government. Months later, Musk is leaving in disgrace because he was wholesale rejected by everyone. No, he's leaving because of a time limit issue. He was not wholesale rejected by everyone. He was promoted and pushed by everybody to audit the government. Again, more, you know what I mean? Come on now. Okay, so back in March, the New York Times reported on an explosive cabinet meeting where Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, and Veteran Affairs Secretary Doug Collins all turned to Musk for his haphazard cuts in their respective agencies. I wouldn't say they tore into him. I would say they had a back and forth. Here's what I think Musk did wrong, okay? Musk was too involved, meaning his name, reputation, his existence as a being was too involved. He didn't do what other billionaires do. The billionaires on the Republican side are not good at this. They actually get in the game. The billionaires on the Democrat side, they don't get in the game as much. They just fund other people to say the things that they want said by getting them in the chairs that pass the votes. The billionaires on the Democrat side are a little bit smarter about this. I think the reason why is the Republican billionaires have a bigger ego, a bigger sense of it's me and not everybody else. And so they get into politics and it's too much them. They have to have barriers between themselves and the government and the people. They have to protect themselves if they want to be smart with their money. The Republicans are not good at that. The Democrat billionaires are very, very good at that. They protect themselves by putting in people so that there is a separation that people can't get access to. All right. Next one. Earlier this month, The Atlantic reported on an expletive-ridden screaming match between Musk and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent that spilled out from the Oval Office into more public areas of the West Wing. The same article also quotes the general counsel for the American Foundation of Government Employees of saying, "We kicked him out of the town. If he had stayed in the shadows and done his stuff, who knows how bad it would have been, but no one likes the guy. Now remember, this is like a company that fires somebody, or that company loses that person and they go to some other company. They're going to take shots at him. But you got to remember something. At the end of the day, these people all want the government to be able to continue. I don't know if you noticed, but this guy did mention Moody's, the group that gives us like a rating as a country as to our ability to lend money, our ability to handle the reserve currency. They just downgraded America. America's credit rating just got downgraded. So, like, to be fair, America's not doing so well. And the first step to other countries saying, we don't want, G7, we don't want the American currency. We want to use a different currency. We want to use the BRICS currency. The first step that they look to is how bad they're doing. But when the actual companies that review, countries' credit, abilities, when they downgrade a country, that's major. America has just been downgraded because it is so completely, hopelessly in debt. In fact, they say that we could never actually pay off this debt. We would have to outgrow it over time so that we would always retain debt, but just continue forward, which is scary, very scary. All right, but Musk's Waterloo moment came in April in Wisconsin. He flew in from out of state, wore a cheese head, and flexed his newfound political muscles in the state Supreme Court race. Musk spent a small fortune of his own money in support of the conservative candidate, Brad Schimmel, but it didn't work. Schimmel lost by 10 points. Wisconsin voters called Musk a pushy billionaire who was cutting everything and said, he just makes me very angry. Well, I don't know what to say, but if you guys don't realize, there are like 4 or 5 key billionaires on the Republican side and the Democrat side that do the same thing over and over. They just spend money. They just spend money. And you know why they spend money? Because they can make enough money the other way by manipulating the assets of the United States back into their pockets. You ever wonder why the United States is like, yeah, we're going to do this green company and this tech company. We're going to open up this area and we're going to change the rules and regulations for this. It's because America doesn't work without the super rich creating jobs for Americans. And the politicians know they need to be able to argue that they created jobs, but they also know they have to make a lot of money for the rich person that just got them in the chair and got them elected. And so that's why we have bad politics, because they have to please daddy. And daddy is the billionaire, or mommy, could be either or could be a variation. I'm sure there's billionaires out there that would rather go by a non-daddy or mommy name. Hey, I'm open. No, okay, so another quote. No one likes the guy. Might be the best summation of Musk's foray into American politics I've encountered. That's not just in Wisconsin. Voters everywhere don't like him. Nate Silver's polling average shows Musk's public approval more than 14 points underwater, with about 54% of Americans saying they disapprove of the billionaire. Musk's intrusion into national politics has also had a real financial consequence for his companies. And this is the part that you got to listen to. This is the interesting part. He has lost billions of dollars since he spent more than $270 million to get Trump elected last year. Tesla sales are down big, especially in Europe, where they crashed nearly 50% year over year last month, which should be a lesson to the Republican billionaires. You do not go full bore, full tilt into politics. You don't put your name, you don't put your reputation on the line. You hire other politicians to do that for you. That's how the Democrats do it. The Democrats are smart about it. In the U.S., according to one report, a shopping center with a shuttered Bed Bath & Beyond store is in violation of Detroit suburbs city code for storing dozens of Tesla vehicles on its parking lot. Generally, I don't think it's good news for a car manufacturer when your flagship luxury trucks are sitting unsold in a random parking lot somewhere outside of Detroit. Tesla shareholders are now saying the company is in crisis, sending a letter to the company demanding that Musk return to work full-time. Thankfully for them, it looks like he has a lot of time on his hands right now. How would he? How would he have unlimited time on his hands? He's the owner of some of the largest corporations on planet Earth. How would he? How would he? He has the most stock in them. How would he? And that's the thing with these articles. When people go to take like the LSAT, which is like a test to see mentally if somebody's capable of becoming a lawyer, if they're, have a high enough IQ, high enough reasoning, analysis skills, etc. When we read this stuff as somebody trained in, bullshido, which is what a lot of this writing is, Let me read it to you again from an attorney's standpoint. Okay, Tesla shareholders are now saying the company is in crisis. It is. It's losing way too much money. That is correct. Sending a letter to the company demanding that Musk return to work full time. That's good. That sounds right. Sounds ethical, honorable, like a correct statement. Thankfully for them, it looks like he has a lot of time on his hands right now. And then they ruin it with a BS sentence. No, he doesn't have a lot of time on his hands. No, he's not just, sitting there twiddling his thumbs. He's got all these corporations to oversee and run. So this idea that he lost in the government and now he's just sitting there sad with all this time on his hands, it is a majestic level of bullshit. I read these and I get infuriated, which is also why I don't watch a lot of the news as much as I used to, because Fox News, CNN, they are pumping shit left and right through those speakers. The left speaker, the right speaker, I am blown away by how they do it. As Musk leaves the government worse off than he found it, it's clear his tenure in Washington was a complete failure. Substantively and politically, Musk has got high on his own supply and convinced himself the American public would fall in love with his antics, but it turns out they would much rather he just go away. That is the article by Chris Hayes. Hyper left, okay? Not obviously right, not obviously independent middle, but hyper left. Not even liberal. Liberal isn't that. Liberal is not that. That is hyper left. That is shameful. That is disgusting. That is misleading. Okay. Now, what tends to be a group that delivers factual information? That would be the Office of Inspector General on behalf of the Social Security Administration. Okay. And what happens with this group is they tell you about the hot sheets of who actually got arrested. I want you to keep your ear open for individuals who were here in this country illegally, but stole Social Security numbers, stole Social Security identification cards. Keep your ear open for that. Here we go. Brandywine man sentenced for federal identity theft and bank wire and passport fraud charges. Baltimore, Maryland. Today, United States District Judge Stephanie A. Gallagher sentenced Lloyd Linwood Comer, 63, of Brandywine, Maryland, to 41 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release, with the first 7 months of home detention for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud, passport fraud, identity theft, and possession of firearm by a prohibited person. Okay, let's go through this real quick. According to Comer's guilty plea from 2019 to 2021, Comer and his co-conspirator, Doreen Gilmore, aka Doreen Flummerfelt, 57, conspired to engage in a series of fraudulent schemes involving stolen identities. And remember, when somebody steals somebody's identity, they are either directly or indirectly committing Social Security fraud, because our identities are all linked to, through the federal government, the Social Security Administration. The defendants used the names and identifying information of victims to purchase vehicles and open or attempt to open bank accounts and obtain bank cards. Vehicles that the defendants acquired by using stolen identities included a 2017 Ford Explorer, fraudulently financed in the amount of $34,710, a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, fraudulently financed in the amount of $20,320, a second 2016 Harley-Davidson motorcycle, fraudulently financed in the amount of $29,612, and 2017 Coachman Leprechaun RV, fraudulently financed in the amount of $60,250. I mean, to be honest, they had more vehicles than I do. You know what I mean? As like somebody who's owned a law firm for almost 12 years now, they had newer, nicer vehicles than me. Fraud, it appears, does pay until you get caught. That's the problem here. Comer and Gilmore also submitted a mortgage application in Gilmore's mother's name in the amount of $433,200 to purchase a residence in Brandywine, Maryland. Unbelievable. Here we go. Comer and Gilmore sent multiple iterations of the loan application document to the lender over a few weeks and sent a final signed application of the loan on May 26, 2020. They eventually secured a loan based on the application to purchase the home in Brandywine. Ultimately, the lender approved the loan relying on the false and fraudulent information and documents that Comer and Gilmore submitted. In addition, Comer obtained a fraudulent United States passport by using identifying information from Gilmore's deceased brother. Then on December 13, 2019, Comer used the fraudulently obtained passport to travel to Jamaica for a wedding. I mean, these guys are pros. Like, this is super pro level stuff. On June 1st, 2021, law enforcement agencies executed a federal search warrant at the Brandywine residence. During the search, authorities found numerous identification-related documents bearing the names, social security numbers, dates of births, and or other identifying information belonging to various victims. Among other items, authorities found identity documents bearing identification information for Gilmore's mother and various victims in the residence. During the June 1st search, law enforcement agents also recovered 13 firearms and more than 6,600 rounds of ammunition. It's a good amount. It's a good amount of ammunition. They knew they were going to get into a firefight at some point. Comer knowingly possessed the firearms and ammunition. Authorities proved Comer possessed firearms and ammunition through digital videos and electronic devices that they recovered during the search. Videos show Comer holding and apparently firing some of the firearms at the Brandywine residence. The firearm and ammunition were firearms and ammunition as defined by federal law and were manufactured outside of the state of Maryland. Prior to possessing the firearm and the ammunition on June 1st, Comer was convicted of a crime punishable by imprisonment for a term exceeding 1 year. His civil rights had not been restored, and he knew his status when he possessed the firearms and ammunition, so he had them illegally. Gilmore was previously sentenced to time served, followed by 3 years of supervised release for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud, passport fraud, and identity theft. The court also ordered the defendants to pay $52,355 in restitution to various victim businesses. That's number one. Number two, husband and wife each sentenced to 12 months in prison for COVID fraud. Let's get into it. But real quick, Harry Bear. Thank you for the $5 donation. That's absolutely amazing. Harry Bear said 3 weeks to go. Keep the karma going. Well, indeed. So thank you for the $5 donation. That's absolutely amazing. Let's rock and roll with this next one real quick from OIG SSA. Husband and wife each sentenced to 12 months in prison for COVID fraud. May 27, 2025. Trenton, New Jersey. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens in Trenton. Trenton's got problems. All right. New Jersey. And Florida husband. Oh, look at that. There's my two spots. New Jersey and Florida husband and wife were sentenced to 12 months in prison for fraudulently obtaining approximately $790,000 in federal economic injury disaster loans. U.S. Alina Haba announced. She's one of the attorneys that works on it. Diana Volteri, 42, and Edmund Haxalari, 43, of Sparta, New Jersey, and Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, previously pled guilty before U.S. District Judge Robert Kirsch to informations charging the couple with wire fraud and money laundering. Judge Kirsch imposed the sentences in Trenton federal court. According to the documents filed in this case and statements made in court, here's the details. From in or around June 2020 through August 2020, Valerian Haxalari participated in a fraudulent scheme to receive $790,000 in COVID-19 emergency relief loans and cash advances meant for distressed small businesses under the EIDL program. You guys know how these go. They submitted false documents. They did bad things. They got the money. They got caught. Let's keep rolling. Next one, OIG hot sheet directly from Social Security Administration's Office of Inspector General. This one is Middle District of Pennsylvania notation for the United States Attorney's Office. Juanita, county woman, sentenced to 6 months home confinement for Social Security Housing Choice Voucher Program fraud. Here we go. And remember, as I read these, what I'm trying to show you is that not only is fraud present, but when they tell you fraud is very low, it's only 0.01 per, it's only 0.12, it's only 0.34, it's only 0.1, it's only 1%. Depending on which metric they're going to give you. My point to you is it's not low. It's rampant. How are they getting away with stealing this much money over and over? And these are just the ones that got caught. There's a bunch of people out there that never even got caught. All right, here we go. May 27, 2025, Harrisburg. The United States Attorney's Office in Middle District of Pennsylvania announced that Doris Santana, age 54, of Thompsontown, Pennsylvania, was sentenced on May 22, 2025 to 6 months home confinement by the United States District Judge Jennifer P. Wilson for Social Security fraud and theft of a public money related to her theft of Social Security and federal housing funds. According to Acting United States Attorney John C. Gurginas, between February 2008 and December 2021, Santana was a participant in the Department of Housing and Urban Development Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. That's where they get housing that's paid for by some other group, which provides rental assistance to eligible recipients between May 2018 and September 2024. Santana also received supplemental security income from the Social Security Administration in April 2011. Santana married individual 1. However, Santana concealed the marriage from the SSA and HUD. Santana's marriage to cohabitation with and receipt of income from individual 1 rendered Santana ineligible to receive SSI and Housing Choice Voucher Program funds. Judge Wilson also ordered Santana to pay $141,055.10 in restitution. The case was investigated by the Social Security Administration's Office of Inspector General, Department of Housing and Urban Development's Office of Inspector General. Assistant United States Attorney David C. Williams prosecuted the case. So, summary, somebody was on SSI. She went into a housing program to basically get housing assistance. She went on to Supplemental Security Income. She got checks. She married a guy. She hid the marriage because she didn't want people to know that she now had access to more money. And then as a result, she was no longer an impoverished person. So now, Section 8 and SSI are saying, hey, you give that money back. You give that money back. You hide your marriages. It's going to happen. All right, here we go. U.S. Attorney's Office secures nearly $9 million in fraud and money laundering proceeds from fraudulently obtained Paycheck Protection Program loans. Newark, New Jersey, what a surprise. On May 14, 2025, U.S. District Judge Michael E. Fabiares entered a final judgment forfeiting to the United States approximately $7 million in fraud and money laundering proceeds, as well as real property purchased with laundered fraud proceeds that has an estimated market value of nearly $2 million. United States Attorney Alina Habba announced. On May 6, 2024, the U.S. Attorney's Office filed a civil forfeiture complaint against approximately $7 million in seized and frozen U.S. currency, as well as real property in Crestkill, New Jersey. I don't even know where Crestkill is. I've never seen that name. That was purchased with nearly $1 million in laundered fraud proceeds, alleging that the assets were the proceeds of fraud and money laundering offenses as alleged in this complaint. Between April 2020 and August of 2020, J.H. Choi fraudulently obtained Paycheck Protection Program loans totaling approximately $8,971,457 and then laundered those funds proceeds through various financial accounts held in the names of Choi's nominees, including Choi's relative and various corporate entities that Choi controlled. According to the civil forfeiture complaint, Choi then spent the laundered fraud proceeds on personal expenses and purchases the Crestkill real property. I want to point out real quick, okay, a lot of this stuff happened during the Biden era because, it takes time for, basically the criminal procedures to catch up, the civil procedures to catch up with our legal system. But I want to point out with this whole thing that, our systems are not locked down. You know what I mean? For him to create enough fake companies to get almost $9 million out of this, out of the PPP loan program, like when I sent in my thing, I printed out or I, save as PDF, my PDF or my ADP payroll. I'm not saying you should go with ADP if you ever do payroll, but I'm just saying that's what we use. Bottom line is I just exported the sheets. But, other people just create what they want. They're great at, basically creating fake accounting documents. And then, I don't know how they would fraud it, because at some point you'd have to link it to a social security number that's actually receiving the funds, that's actually getting paid. Because normally these are all paid through bank accounts. So I'm amazed that they get away with this, but let alone almost $9 million in PPP. I mean, the level of fraud that happened in 2020, 2021, right? The level of fraud, April 2020, August 2020, the level of fraud occurring here is absolutely astounding. It's absolutely astounding. And remember, these are people that got in trouble during the Biden era, and now only during the Trump era are they catching up with it. So this is interesting. All right, let's get to the next one, because we got a lot to go through here. We're almost done with them, though. Brazilian nationals. Remember, when we talk about individuals that are here, either illegally or quasi-legally, Brazilian nationals sentenced to over 1 year in prison for perjury. May 29, 2025, Boston. A Brazilian national residing in Malden, Mass. was sentenced today in federal court in Boston for lying on his asylum application at an immigration hearing upon applying for a U.S. visa. The defendant never disclosed his arrest in a case involving the murders of 11 people. What a sweetheart. Most teenagers in Brazil, in retaliation for the death of a police officer, an incident known as the slaughter of Curio. I'm not sure, but apparently this guy, the slaughter of Curio, I mean, that must have been, it's got its own name. I mean, when you have a horrible event that has a name attached to it, that's something. Antonio Jose de Abreu Vidal Filho, 31, was sentenced by U.S. District Court Judge Denise J. Casper to 16 months in just 16 months. De Abreu is subject to deportation upon completion of the imposed sentence in February 2025. De Abreu pleaded guilty to 2 counts of perjury. In May 2024, De Abreu was indicted by a federal grand jury. In April 2014, De Abreu joined the Ceará State Military Police, Brazilian state forces who were under the governor do the first-line policing on the streets. In the early morning hours of November 12, 2015, numerous Brazilian military police officers employed by the government of the Brazilian state of Ceará, including Debrew, participated in a mass killing event of primarily young people from the impoverished neighborhoods of Barroso, Mezejana, Guerrero, Curio, and Lago Redonda. I've pronounced all those incorrectly, I'm sure, in the capital of Ceará. The killings were in retaliation for the death of another police officer who was attempting to defend his wife, who was being assaulted. In total, 11 people, mostly teenagers, were murdered and many others seriously injured and tortured. This incident has come to be known as a Chacina do Curio, or the slaughter of Curio, or the Curio massacre. A total of 45 individuals, including Debrew, were charged by the Brazilian authorities, and on August 31st, 2016, Debrew was arrested and detained by the Brazilian police. He was subsequently released pending trial on May 24th, 2017. Wow. 2 weeks later, on June 9th, 2017, while in Recife, Brazil, Debrew applied for United States non-immigrant B2 visitor visa. When asked whether he had been arrested or convicted for any offenses or crime, Debrew responded no. Thereafter, on or about June 21st, 2017, the United States Department of State approved Debrew's visa application and issued him the B2 visa. Based upon his false representations, Debrew used the B2 visa and traveled to Miami. Oh, wow. This guy got out fast. He got out of Brazil real fast. Traveled to Miami on May 30th, 2018. Between May 30th, 2018 through August 14th, 2023, as a result of the approval of the visa application, Debrew obtained various state driver's licenses, a social security card, travel documents, and authorization for employment. Damn. Debrew applied for asylum on January 29, 2020, and lied when asked whether he had been accused, charged, arrested, detained, interrogated, or imprisoned in any country other than the United States. He also failed to disclose his arrest and detention in Brazil when he applied for adjustment of status with United States Citizenship and Immigration Service. On June 25, 2023, Debrew was convicted of 11 counts of murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 4 counts of physical and mental torture, of the first count of Fortaleza, Ceará. That same day, Debrew was sentenced to 275 years and 11 months in prison and an arrest warrant issued. Holy shit. 2023. Convicted and found 275 years, 11 months in prison, and an arrest warrant issued. On February 9th, 2024, Debrew testified under oath in an immigration hearing conducted by U.S. Immigration Court, falsely claiming that he had never lied to immigration officials and that only, that's an interesting, I might go pull this one up later. This is interesting. Reason he had pull up like the full case brief. Reason he had left off important information on immigration documents filed with the United States government was because he had not yet been arrested. Oh my God. Woo! We got some interesting criminals in this country. Very nice. All right, let's get to the next one. Honduran national. Guilty of firearm possession. New Orleans, acting United States Attorney Michael M. Simpson, this was May 29, 2025, announced that Yahosmi Josu Perez Alvarez, age 32 and native of Honduras, pled guilty on January 8, 2025 before the U.S. District Judge J.C. Zaney to being an illegal alien in possession of a firearm in violation of Title 18. According to the court documents, an armed robbery occurred on the evening at sentencing, faces maximum penalty of 10 years. Okay. Let's get through that one. Pittsburgh woman indicted for fraudulent receipt of supplemental security income benefits. There's just so much fraud to talk about. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people realize. They're like, fraud is very minimal. Fraud is not very minimal in this country. It is rampant. Pittsburgh woman indicted for fraudulent receipt of supplemental security income benefits May 30th, 2025. A resident in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, has been indicted by a federal grand jury in Pittsburgh on charges of supplemental security income fraud and theft of government property. Acting United States Attorney Troy Rivetti announced today. The 2-count indictment named Dana Nicole Johnson, 54, as the sole defendant. According to the indictment, from in and around May 2021 until and around June 2023, Johnson concealed and failed to disclose events with the intent to fraudulently obtain Social Security income benefits. Remember, that's the Poverty Disability Program, or the Poverty Over 65 Program, or the Poverty Immigrant Program. SSI is a monthly needs-based payment benefit that is offered to people with disabilities and the elderly who have little or no income. Applicants are required to report their wages, assets, and living arrangements, as those matters are considered by the Social Security Administration when determining eligibility for SSI. Because you got to be poor, you got to be impoverished, you got to be not really, for the most part, able to work. Okay. The indictment alleges that Johnson failed to disclose income from her employment with the Home Health Care Service and Department of Veteran Affairs and the Department of Veteran Affairs. You worked for a sub program under the VA and received money. You worked for a sub-program for the federal government and didn't think they were going to see that? Like, come on. Are you shitting me? The indictment further alleges that Johnson stole and converted to her own use SSI payment benefits. The law provides for maximum total sentence of 10 years, fine of up to $250,000. Under federal sentencing guidelines, the actual sentence imposed would be based on the seriousness of the offense and prior criminal history, if any, of the defendant. Assistant United States Attorney Brendan J. McKenna is prosecuting this case on behalf of the government. Social Security Administration Office of Inspector General, the Department of Veteran Affairs Office of Inspector General conducted the investigation leading to the indictment. An indictment is an accusation. The defendant is presumed innocent and until proven guilty. All right. What did we learn? We have learned, to be very fair, that fraud almost every day occurs related to Social Security benefits, theft of identity, over and over. Okay? And one thing you have to keep in mind is that a lot of these situations are felonies, like over a year. I mean, this is serious stuff. This is the stuff that they catch. So I guess my question to you is, I understand Doge and Elon Musk. A lot of people are like, I don't like him because of this, and this. Doge is supposed to be the auditing authority for auditing the government over and over. Do you agree that the government should be audited? Do you agree that an agency should be there to consistently audit it? Who should audit Doge? Right? Who's going to actually audit the auditor? My point to you is, if we have this fraud that keeps occurring, why haven't we cleaned up our system yet? And if we don't audit the government, then how are we going to know what we need to work on? Because, the audit is going to find the problems. That's the whole point of an audit. The audit finds the problems, then we work on systems to fix the problems. So I guess my point to you is this. At the end of the day, I really believe that the government needs to be audited. Did I think a super celebrity like Elon Musk should have done what he did? No, that was the dumbest thing Elon could have done. Right? Sure, fine. Send money to Trump. Have Trump be the thing. Fine. But Elon took the great fire of the sun of hatred that normally would have gone to Trump. And Trump used him as a shield in that regard. But these billionaires, they want to get in there because they want to be relevant. They want to be important. That's why I'm looking at the situation with the new, I don't know if he's a billionaire. I assume he's a billionaire, or at least a high millionaire. When I look at essentially the new Social Security Administration Commissioner, Frank Bisignano, I'm sitting back and I'm looking at this thing and I'm just like, dude, why would you ever take this job? I mean, yeah, sure, I get your parents, I get the situation with that, I get you want to help people, but why would you ever take the job? You have all the money in the world, apparently all the ego in the world to push you in that direction as well, because the only thing that can make you want to do that job is to have relevance to more people. I don't know. I don't understand why billionaires are putting their reputation and name on the line by taking political jobs. It's insane. They are destroyed almost every time by the system. Every time. These legacy news groups, I mean, they destroy them. They have all these groups that are paid to go out and march against people. I mean, it's just, you have an army of people screaming one thing and an army of people screaming another thing, and you have the independents in the middle being like, boy, these people are out there. These people are, they are zingers. So, point I'm getting at is, do you support what Elon was doing? Or do you feel like Elon did everything wrong or did a lot wrong or whatever? Because there's really only two at this. There's no like, yeah, he did some good, he did some bad. My opinion is this. I'm just going to tell you where I stand. Elon started an audit that nobody else in the government had the cojones to do. Not even Trump. I don't think Trump would have been able to do what Elon did to actually get all the auditing going. I know Trump was part of it, but he needed Elon. He needed his brain power, his business style, his cut here, chainsaw there to do what was just done. I don't think even Trump would have attempted to do what Elon did. It was a rough start. They fired a lot of people. They retired a lot of people. Do I think they went too fast, too hard? Yes. Do I think they should have done studies first and then figured out what they should have cut? Yes. That's normally how you do it with the government. In the private sector, you cutting because, if you run out of money, it's game over, right? If you run out of money to borrow, it's game over. What I feel with this whole situation is that at the end of the day, Elon was something that was good to shake the American people and to realize there's a problem here. Although some people still believe there's not that much fraud, there's not that much abuse, there's not that much waste, which after seeing the reports that have come out from, independent groups, there was quite a lot of fraud, quite a lot of waste, especially internationally. So my thing is this: I don't think we could get to a good place with a more relaxed auditing structure without the shock and awe effect of an Elon. I don't think we would be as set up to go ahead and do future audits without an Elon. Would I have liked a more slow approach, a more methodical? Absolutely. I would have enjoyed that significantly more. I would have trusted everything a lot more. I would have felt more on board with it. But underlying all that, I don't trust the federal government to audit itself. No group can ever be the overseeing group to audit itself. So you have to bring in outside people that are really outside. And I mean, let's just be honest here. Elon was outside of the federal government. He's never really been an employee for the federal government like that before. He's not Pelosi. He's not Schumer. He's not Chuck. He's not, he's not even Trump, who's been in there before like that. I think at the end of the day, Elon took a bullet. He's still going to get even more of it too. I do not understand why he did it. I get that he loves America. I get that he loves the opportunities. He built his companies here for the most part, although he's stretched out all over the place. I get that. But imagine the ego you'd have to take your love for your country and then literally sacrifice your massive corporations to achieve what he felt was a better America. Imagine that. Imagine the ego it would take, because, in his mind, he's doing this to make his businesses achieve more in the future with a more successful America. Do you think he achieved that? We don't know. We'll only know in 2 to 5 years. All right. With that said, please remember to like. A lot of you guys don't hit the like button. Please remember to subscribe. I will catch you all a little bit later. Also, remember, on Mondays and Thursdays, I normally go live. I was too tired yesterday. I'm super stressed about shadow surgery. I actually finished this video, pack up my stuff, and leave to go to Ohio, because basically tomorrow, Shadow's going to be reviewed for his full hip surgery, his total hip replacement, potential surgery. So I've been a ball of worry, because that's my firstborn, even though he's this tiny little dog and he's adorable. That's like my firstborn, you know what I mean? So with that said, please remember, I also go ahead and do private consultations where for an hour, you get to buy an hour of my time. I figure out what the issue is with the Social Security disability benefits. I'll let you know. Remember, when hiring a Social Security disability attorney, you don't have to hire me. You can hire anyone. But remember, at the end of the day, ask them if they had to pay any referral fees to get your number. That's important, because that's becoming a huge thing. Like a lot of the advertisements you see nowadays on Facebook and X and all that stuff, a lot of them are for a group that's not the actual group that's going to represent you. And then they got to pay referral fees on top of referral fees. It's like a whole schmutz. So it's just be aware of that. I will catch you all a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'm going to drive Shadow to his medical appointment in Ohio. We're going to wake up super early and go there, meet with what is considered to be one of the best veterinarian surgeons that does this particular surgery, which is extremely limited. There's only a few of them. I will catch you all a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day, and thank you so much. Please be kind to each other. Please be nice to each other, and have a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.